Welcome to the Association 4.0 podcast, your association's no-fluff playbook to navigating and thriving in Industry 4.0 or the digital marketplace. Each week, we bring expert insights to help you and your association stay ahead of the curve.
Hello, my name is Sherry Budziak, and I'm the host of the Association 4.0 podcast. I am also a co-founder of .org Community and founder and CEO of .org Source, a consultancy to associations. Today, my guest is David Reid. David is a longtime colleague and friend and owner of Strategic IT Consulting and Services. He is a senior level IT consultant with a broad and deep experience working with both not-for-profits, societies, associations, and corporate business entities. So I am really excited to have this conversation with David today. So David, thanks for joining me.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here. We have worked together for a really long time, and it's really exciting to be talking about one of my favorite topics.
Yeah. So as my listeners know, I am passionate about helping leaders develop skills for navigating these fast-paced digital markets. And David is always on the cutting edge of IT issues. So I'm really interested in this discussion about AI. When you and I were chatting back and forth via email, I thought, oh, perfect timing to have you on the podcast. So David, tell us about yourself and about the consulting business and work that you do.
I go back a long way. I won't even begin to tell you how long I go back. It's been more than 50 years now. I looked it up the other day when I knew I was going to do this podcast with you. Started out as a systems engineer, worked with a lot of big companies at the time, companies like Quaker State, AmeriTek, AT&T, did some work for NASA, ended up migrating into a situation where I was a regional manager for a computer manufacturer. Gave me an opportunity to work in the Pacific Rim, working in Beijing and places like that. Left commercial IT and began to do a lot of consulting work for associations. I had found at the time that I thought that pure IT was a little too sterile for me. There wasn't enough hands-on with people, and I wanted a way to bring together the part of me that needed to help people with a part of me that was fascinated with electronics and machinery. So I found that associations and societies really began to meet that need. And eventually I became the director of IT at the Association for Neurosurgeons. That's where I met Sherry. She and I worked together. Leaving there, I went on to other associations, Society of Critical Care Medicine and the endodontists and the Association for Supply Chain Management, places like that. But along the way, I have found that it was always an opportunity to bring together my love of IT and find a way to use it to help people through association work. So that pretty much brings me up to where we are today.
Where we are in the age of AI. So David, tell us what you think that every CEO, association CEO, or CEO, I guess in general, should know about generative AI.
Well, generative AI, there's probably a few fundamental things that any CEO needs to know. The very first thing is that AI isn't coming, it's here.
Yeah.
If you want to survive in this new world, you're going to need to be leveraging the tools provided by AI, because if you're not, your competition is.
Yeah.
No other technology is as impactful on business or society as AI. Absolutely nothing. It's astonishing how quickly it is moving into every corner, every crevice of what we do. If you look back at the big changes in society and the world, we had steam. Well, steam took about 100 years before we replaced it with electricity. And then after electricity, we used electricity to invent computers and then the internet. But each of those giant changes occurred on a smaller and smaller interval. You had about 100 years for steam. Electricity came along, and it wasn't but 20 or 30 years before we had computers. And then we had the internet in about 10. And AI has gone from, hey, I think I heard something about that, to beginning to take over and participate in all these different parts of our business in less than a year. So it's moving at an absolutely exponential rate, don't stand with your feet on the ground because the train is moving out. So I think that's one of the first really important thing, is that you don't have a lot of time to wait and see where this is going, because it's going. The rate is moving at such an incredible fast pace. Just don't be left behind. You also need to know, once you've made that decision to begin to use this absolutely incredible new tool, that every AI, and there's the big names we all recognize. There's ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and Dolly and things like that. Every one of them has a slightly different personality. It has a slightly different skill set, things that it's better at than other things. And so it's not just go get an AI. It's basically interview one, read about them, and find the one that fits best for the thing you want to use it for. The other thing you need to know is have some idea of how this tool works, just from a 50,000-foot level. Not the details of how the code works or anything like that, but have some understanding, like any employee that you take on, have some idea about how it works. What does it do well? What does it not do well? At the end of the day, I think most of us sort of have this picture in our heads that it's this massive, big, giant program, and it does all this stuff, and it's this massive amount of code. But the reality is, the program, the actual software behind AI, is not that large. It eats a lot of data, but the program itself is relatively small, about 200,000 lines of code. And most of that is dedicated to understanding what you type, turning it into tokens that it can make sense of, and then once it has done the work for you, turning its tokens back into language you can understand. The rest of it operates the model itself, the large language model. The way we take this relatively straightforward piece of code and make it do astonishing things is we train it like a child on vast amounts of information. We get that vast amount of information from the internet. Literally trillions of units of information are culled off of the internet. They're reduced to tokens that the program can understand, and then we train it as to what things really mean, what things interrelate with other things. And part of that process, what they call the training process, is also the expensive process. It typically costs between $40 and $50 million to train a large language model AI like ChatGPT. So it has all this information, but it has to be able to make sense of it. And that's the training aspect of it. And as it's learning, it develops interlinks between all these tokens of information in much the same way that your brain does. So you smell fresh cookies baking in the kitchen, and your brain has linked together things related to that, like, oh, I think about a recipe for chocolate chips. And that reminds me of grandma's kitchen and family holidays and childhood memories. And all of these things are linked together in ways that lead back to chocolate chip cookies. And the AI works the same way, except that it's vastly larger, about 1.5 trillion tokens of information in the current AIs on the market. And it begins making these complex associations with the goal of being able to predict, once given a sentence, what is the most likely response to that sentence, that piece of text. And so what it gives back to us in response to the ordinary English sentence that we have given it, or a question, is this linkage analysis that finds, through an association from the smell of cookies to childhood memories, the things that we're looking for. And it can massage all that back together in ways that look, sound, and appear very intelligent. So you can buy AI on a variety of scales. Normal little chat bots like you'd put on your website and things like that are not big, and they're not expensive. The big ones, the ones that are getting all the press, those are super expensive. They're super power hungry, And only a handful of those really big players are going to pretty much rule that high-end part of the market in the foreseeable future. You'll be able to lease time on their big brain, but we don't have to worry about owning or maintaining them because we simply won't be able to afford it.
Well, that's great, David. You've always been really good at breaking down complex IT things. That was a great explanation, and the cookie analogy was really good too. So we appreciate that. So how do you envision AI actually being used in associations, or are you seeing things that are being used in associations? I know that we are, and we're working with a couple organizations on, what their potential, these opportunities for AI look for them in the future. And it's interesting, as we've been kind of having these discussions, is everything's changing as we're like meeting with associations week after week. Things, change, and companies are leapfrogging each other. And anyway, so it's interesting times. But how do you envision AI being used in associations?
AI is at the phase that I call the frog in the blender. It is absolutely whirling around so fast that you literally can't have a conversation about it that it hasn't evolved or changed during the conversation.
Yeah.
So I gave some thought to this question, and I put together a little list of things I thought how AIs would benefit associations. And it's a relatively short list. In research, data analysis and reporting, rapid reporting from staff to management, rapid reporting from management to leadership and to the board of directors, marketing development and deployment, one-off programming projects, diverse web feature deployment, illustrations, AI-based queries from your site to your membership, and a variety of little things like that. And then I thought to myself, well, we're talking about AI. Let's ask it what it thinks it can do for associations. So I did. I have a paid subscription to ChatGPT. So I asked it the following question: how can professional societies and associations use artificial intelligence to improve services to their members, enhance internal data analysis and reporting to management, provide insight to strategy planning, and improve staff efficiency, as well as marketing to retain existing members and acquire new members? And ChatGPT's response was, professional societies and associations can leverage artificial intelligence in various ways to enhance their services, improve internal operations, and optimize marketing efforts. Here are several strategies. Personalized member experience. AI algorithms can analyze member data, including demographics, preferences, and engagement patterns, to personalize the member experience. This could involve recommending relevant events, publications, or resources based on individual interests and career stage. Chatbots, powered by AI, can provide instant support to members, answering common questions, assisting with event registration, and guiding users to relevant resources. It proceeds to go on and give me a list of, counting them now, 6 things along that line and in that level of detail, with headings that are data analysis and reporting, strategic planning and decision making, staff efficiency and automation, marketing and member acquisition, content recommendation and curation. It ends with a summary that says, by harnessing the power of AI, professional societies and associations can optimize member experiences, streamline internal operations, and drive growth and innovation in an increasingly competitive landscape. However, it's important to implement AI ethically, ensuring transparency, fairness, and privacy protections for members' data. I'll send this list to you, Sherry, so that you can post it along with the podcast if you want, because it's quite detailed. And it basically covers the same points I did, but with a lot more detailed analysis with each point. I think this is really the nearly perfect example of how you can use it within the organization. You ask it a simple question. As long as the question is well formed, what you get back is a response from a highly intelligent coworker, a partner, somebody you've installed at your elbow who literally doesn't have to look anything up. They know it. It's in their mind. So the response is nearly instantaneous, and it's in-depth, and it's useful, and it's valid.
So, David, how do you advise CEOs who are wondering how to supervise the use of AI in their organizations? Like, it was interesting, David Martin, I was doing a presentation with him at the association forum. I think it was like November and 23. And it was interesting because their response to the things that they were doing at SCCM was not everybody in the audience, obviously, but some people were saying, oh, we're not even allowed to use AI. We've got restrictions that we can't use AI. We're telling our members that they cannot produce content for like abstracts or whatever. They can't use AI. So obviously that's very extreme and different from what FCCM is doing as they're exploring different tools and how they might use them in their operations. So I'm interested to hear your take on how you think CEOs should supervise, I guess, for lack of a better word, the use of AI in their orgs.
I think that there is a difference between using AI as a tool and a substitute for creativity. I think AI is an excellent tool. Would I want AI to write as a medical paper for me, explaining how to perform a surgical operation without reviewing what it wrote? No.
Yeah.
And I think that the fear, there's a lot of unnecessary fear going on because we keep seeing examples of that. We see university students being thrown out of school because rather than write their term paper, they asked ChatGPT to write it for them. And then because they didn't bother to do the research themselves, they're ill-equipped to see the inaccuracies in what's being generated. Because frankly, ChatGPT didn't take the course with you. It'll give you general answer back, but it doesn't know what the course content was or what was covered in class, and or it isn't going to deliver it in your style. So I think that's where a lot of the fear came from. And I think some of the challenges that a CEO needs to be aware of within the organization as you use this tool is that it is there to help people, but not really replace them at this point. It's not able to do that. So you have an issue of accuracy. Some of the AIs are worse than others about they're so confident of what they think they know that when you ask them a question, if they don't know the answer, frankly, they make something up. So you need to be aware of accuracy. You may use it to help review some scientific literature and then generate a summary, but you certainly wouldn't publish it without an editor or somebody familiar with the content looking at it and saying, yes, this is right, because sometimes it just won't be.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen even their own industry. I've been on webinars where you can tell it's been all written by ChatGPT or something, and it's just kind of read back, like taking what you just went through and showed us as an example, and people kind of reading that on a webinar. So there are some things I think that need to be navigated, but to me, I don't know, some of it is, you would think it's common sense that you wouldn't just take the tools giving you and publish it, but I'm sure there are people that are doing that. So.
Well, honestly, I think we're at this stage in AI that we used to be with computers in general in the 60s and 70s, where whatever burped out of the machine, nobody questioned, because computers just don't make mistakes.
Yeah, good point.
And we practically, I mean, there were people whose entire incomes were lost and lives were screwed up because somebody input the wrong data, the wrong information now came out, but nobody questioned the machine. We know better now. We don't do that anymore. But that's where I think we are now with artificial intelligence. Anything that the machine helps you produce at this point needs to be viewed through the lens of accuracy, completeness, ethics. Ethics are a big one that it doesn't know a lot about. And legal considerations. Is the thing that you got back, does it contain stereotyping, bigotry, misogyny, racism, a whole host of legal and HR issues that you have to look for because it isn't developed to the point where it's able to understand those things yet. So I think human review of anything that it gives you is going to be essential. It leaves you in control. What you want to avoid is putting it in charge. It's not ready to take on that job.
Well, David, we had, and this is a kind of a little bit of a sidebar, because we had that sidebar kind of conversation, which I thought was enlightening the way that you described it. But back earlier in this conversation, you talked about these tools are getting information from the internet, but the internet has its own biases because you've got tons of marketing people saying, this is what a stereotype looks like, right? So when you're doing images, and I was trying to do images for a presentation, and I kept saying, add some diversity, add some this, add some that, and it just couldn't do it. Like, it just wasn't giving me what I needed. So I abandoned it because I was like, okay, I'm not getting what I need, which is fine, and just kind of move on. But I don't know, do you want to comment about that?
Yeah, it goes back to what I said earlier. The artificial intelligence, and it doesn't matter which brand we're talking about, they're all basically trained the same way. We feed them a lot of information, and it develops a worldview based on that information. However, we cull most of that information off of the internet. And then we sort of pretend to ourselves that what we've given it is an image of society, but we didn't. What we find on the internet, the World Wide Web, is highly distorted. The World Wide Web is awash with most of the information comes from three big sources. It comes from marketing, people who are trying to convince us that if you buy our drug, no matter how sick you are, you're going to look like this hot shirtless guy playing soccer. All the people are young, most of them are white, and most of them are male.
Yeah.
So we fed all this distorted view into it. And at the same time, it's able to go out during training, and it has collected a lot of information off of social media. But nobody goes to social media, very few people go to social media to talk about how good something is. Everybody goes there to talk about how screwed up something is and to show you that, however, their life is perfect. They live in that selfie world. So what we've given it is this sort of funhouse mirror reflection of society, and it's not accurate. So anytime we go to it and we say, hey, give us the average CEO, give us the average this, give us the average that, it's heavily influenced by these three inaccurate sources. And that causes a big problem. That's where a lot of the things leak into its responses that we don't want. Things that are racist, things that are everybody's white and male, and things like that. It does not at this point possess an accurate picture of society because we haven't given it an accurate picture of society.
Yeah, that was a good way to really think through the tool, and like you said, and the responses, and being careful on how it's interpreting, or I guess for lack of better words, kind of in giving you responses, and kind of the lens, I guess, of how we need to look at the information that we're getting back. So what do you think are the biggest advantages and challenges in managing AI in the future? I mean, you just talked about some. Are there other things that we need to think about?
There are, actually. And when you asked the question, the first thing I thought was, well, can we even manage AI in the future? I mean, that's the big question.
That's a big question.
It's not clear that we can manage it as an entity. We can manage how we use it up to a point, but it literally is being built in to the search engines we use, the automated phone systems we call, the marketing we watch, the art we see, the music we listen to. We even have limited control over how we interact with it, because it is being inserted literally into everything. AI, as a broad term, AI, is evolving at an absolutely unprecedented rate. And there are new AI models being developed and deployed on almost a weekly basis. It's hard to wrap one's head around the investment that's going on in AI and pushing it forward. It's incredibly expensive, and people with billions and billions of dollars to spend are the ones who are controlling these new children. And we really don't have any reach into that. As an example of the scale that's involved, Microsoft and OpenAI are currently in discussion because they want to come out with ChatGPT 5, and they need a new supercomputer to run it on. The current machines are not big enough or fast enough. And they are talking about spending $100 billion with a B dollars just to build it. It's going to cover more than 100 acres of data center. It's going to eat 5 gigawatts of energy. Microsoft is proposing that they're going to build their own nuclear power plant to make it go.
Wow.
At this incredible level of investment, it's literally being forced like high pressure water into a sponge into every open pore of our lives. So can we manage it? Well, somebody probably can, but it won't be you or me.
How do you see AI impacting the future of associations?
We're at this point now where what I just said isn't really intended to make everybody scared. It's a heads up that things are going to be different. They don't have to be bad. I keep mentioning AI as like a child, and right now in its development, that's sort of what it is. It's more or less up to the developers and to us who consume the product to be the parents of AI and raise it up as a good child versus Damien Omen 3, if you know what I'm talking about. It has a bright side. AI offers this amazing opportunity to solve not only the problems that we know about, but the unforeseen problems that we don't know about yet. It has an astonishing ability to analyze trends and directions and literally predict the future. It can help us steer that course in a prosperous and successful way. We just have to reach out and make use of this incredibly powerful tool. If we use it well and we use it wisely, it can make associations, individuals, and businesses very successful, literally make humanity better. We just have to be really good parents to this rather precocious child. Associations, which tend to be a little sluggish at adopting technology, are literally at the threshold, in my opinion, and the opinions of others, but I'm just saying this is my opinion, of a big shakeout. Those who embrace the technology are going to succeed, and those who don't are going to fail. I wish it didn't have to sound so dramatic, but the real truth is your competitors are not just the other associations. I'll give you an example. Right now, businesses and associations, we all spend enormous resources on things like marketing, web presence, online tools, SEO, because we know that in the post-COVID world, everything has gone online. We use Zoom and Teams and other tools to have our meetings, annual meetings and conventions, and even exhibit halls have become virtual. Education has moved online to curated online and hybrid experiences. Business offices and headquarters are closing right and left as the staff operate remotely using databases and phone systems in the cloud. But what happens when people no longer need to access our websites? Why would a person waste time searching online, parsing the results, going to multiple websites, searching again on the website for specific information when they can simply ask the question to an AI and seconds later have the information delivered to them in aggregated, pre-digested form? The answer is they don't. Entire industries are either going to vaporize or be radically changed by the fact that we've built this world around the World Wide Web and websites. How people use them is going to change very rapidly now. SEO is a good example of that. It's going the way of the dodo bird because using search engines to find what we're looking for is going away as well. We already see AI being added to search engine results. Google knows this, and they're already making plans for the transition. People don't want a tool that helps them work. They want a tool that helps them not work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So associations really need to wrap their head around this, and they need to evolve with the world that they serve. What they provide must become more personal. It has to be more curated. It has to be more socially impactful, because they will soon no longer be able to rely on being the gatekeepers to information as a way to generate revenue. You're going to need to be very personalized in ways that make you retain your membership, find new members, because the information that a lot of associations have jealously guarded, your ability to control that is soon gone. So that cannot be how you add value to the membership. It has to be in interaction, interpersonal relations, and things like that. AI can help associations be a lot more agile. It can help them see trends. It can help them analyze what the members want and what they need. In a world where the mediocre is not going to make it, AI can help your association not only be successful, but to thrive by knowing what people need and making everything literally tuned to each individual within your membership, your constituency. It can put you in a position where you'll be the one that's surviving when others who are dragging their feet are not going to make it.
Yeah. So, David, as we kind of wrap up, what do you find personally the most useful about AI?
Well, artificial intelligence is a tremendous potential for good and for the advancement of society as a whole. It can help us create, it can help us predict, it can help us understand, it can help us see the hidden, it can work alongside us as we build a future. It's also going to be disruptive. It's going to be disruptive to industries, to society. And we need to not be shy about addressing those issues. We can't dance around them and pretend like they're going to go away, because they're not. We need to understand that the world is on the threshold of a lot of change. So we need to embrace that rather than ignore it or hope the elephant leaves the room. We need to find ways to soften that blow to people who are going to be impacted. Part of that means that we need to be looking for leaders within our organizations, but also at the governmental level, who are capable of understanding this technology in order to regulate it. It needs some regulation. We need new standards on which to make our choices of who will lead us into the future. Right now, we're trying to manage the future with laws and regulations that were created over 200 years ago, and it's not going to serve us well. I started to say the genie is out of the bottle and there's no putting it back, but the reality is the genies are out of their bottles and we're never going to be able to get them back in there. We've all been given access to pick the genie of our choice and then tell it what our wishes are. We have to be careful that those genies are raised up in a way that they can't allow us to give in to the baser human part of ourselves. We have to make the world a better place. This question alone, oh my God, you know me. When I start talking, it's like a fire hose. You can't shut me up. This is going to take a lot of discussion. What are we going to do with it? Where's it going to go? Where's it going to take us? We have some control over that, and I think we should exercise it. But we can't exercise it until we embrace it and make it our own. I think the future has the potential to be incredibly bright. We already have seen AI has the ability to read diagnostic medical x-rays better than we can, to invent drugs when we need them, to perform surgical procedures that our human hands aren't able to do, to give people who are paralyzed back the ability to function without being pushed around in their wheelchairs, to have some measure of their lives back. It has tremendous potential. We just need to embrace it. I'm really excited about that. I want to see the good that can come out of this. And I think we just all have to link arms and join together and see where we can take it.
Well, this has been great, David. I know I could talk to you all day about this topic. And David actually also provided some resources that we will put in the notes, as well as I will end up posting it on my LinkedIn as well when we post the podcast. And David, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to get in touch with me is by email. You can post that as well if you want.
Sounds great. We appreciate your time today, David. And hopefully, I think you'll probably be at our Solutions Day in September. And to meet David, consider joining .org community, and we connect people like David to the association community and have these types of vibrant discussions. So we appreciate your time today, David, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks so much. It's been fun.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and discovered tips and information that will add value to your leadership style and your association. .org Source specializes in positioning teams for success with solutions for technology, strategy, and marketing. please contact us at info@orgsource.com or visit www.orgsource.com to find out how to keep your organization on track to Association 4.0.